You're watching Open Agenda. Here's our host, Joe Venosa.
Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Open Agenda. With us we have from Mardella, Mr. Jim Atkins.
Yes.
And of course from Parsonsburg, Mr. Joe White.
Thank you for having me on.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. It's always fun to be in the center for once. They don't see my bald hair, the thin hair.
They see your good side right from the front.
On a somewhat serious note, there have been some really major news reports come out the last couple weeks about the ruling that Circuit Court Judge Matt Massarello made regarding the planned biorefinery on Atkins Road. Now, this is a story that we've actually covered quite a bit, really, since last year.
Yes.
We initially invited Ms. Rhonda Tomko and Joe Diggs on in different capacities to talk about the construction of this biorefinery and what it could mean. And they have been fighting this fight, again, for well more than a year and a half. And it came to, hopefully, a final resolution on March 2nd, when, of course, as I said, Judge Massarello gave the ruling that effectively denied the permit and the continuation of the project.
Yeah, I mean, watching the Board of Appeals process, that very public process where people could have gone and spoken in favor of the biodiesel refinery, and obviously most people went and spoke against it. This was the legal side. This was the culmination because everything has flowed to them into their favor so far.
Absolutely. Pretty good stuff, right?
Yeah, it was. I'd gotten a call one day from a lady in Worcester County who was concerned about this. Mm-hmm. And I took a ride out one day afternoon and spent about an hour and a half just wasting my time sitting on the side of the road out in the development, watching this place, not wanting to get on his property. And growing up on a farm and being around farms all my life, the amount of equipment, trailers, and trucks and everything he had in his property for this place, you knew it had to be a commercial site because there are no farmers in the county that have that type of equipment pulled up next to their barns.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a chicken farm, and I've been on plenty of those.
And you could just see the amount of traffic that would be running in and out of that place all the time.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm curious because now that there has been a resolution to this, I'd like to bring on both Rhonda Tomko and Joe Diggs to specifically kind of talk about that aspect of it and how the court ruled in their favor because of these conditions. So would you guys mind sticking around in the studio and then coming back in a little bit later after we talk?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Sure.
All right, thank you, folks. Well, stick around and we'll be right back with Ms. Rhonda Tomko and Ms. Joe Diggs. I'm going to talk about the resolution to the court case on the biorefinery. Welcome back to Open Agenda. With us in the house, two old friends of the show, Ms. Joe Diggs and Ms. Rhonda Tomko. So you have been quite active over the last year or so on a major community issue in your neck of the woods. So for just to recap for the public, where you live on Atkins Road, a biorefinery was in construction. The owner effectively was violating several environmental rules, regulations, and zoning ordinances. And there was a stop work order put in last year by the Board of Appeals. Correct.
By the county zoning.
Excuse me, by the county zoning board. It went to the it went to the Board of Appeals. They ruled in your favor as well. Then he appealed to court. It went to Circuit Court, and as of March 2nd of this month, so just about a week and a half ago, it was ruled that the biorefinery is not allowed to be built.
Right.
So, first off, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're very happy about that.
Yeah.
Yes, the court did rule in the favor of the appeals, zoning appeals. They upheld the decision by the county, and basically two factors: that it is a processed product which isn't suitable in the agricultural zoning, and that it doesn't constitute an accessory because those it's not a commonly farming type of product. So he lost basically on those two forms. So.
On the facts.
Yes.
Wow. And maybe it's good. And this was obviously an issue that a lot of people, not only in your part of Wacomico County, but I think really throughout the region were watching. And I think people watching because of what could have happened. So can we talk briefly about the dangers of what this kind of project represents to residents in our neck of the woods?
One of the largest frustrations with this specifically is that it was viewed by the rest of us that lived in the community as an industrial waste processing facility. And it was less than 250 feet from the residential neighbor, from their wellhead. There was obviously going to be some kind of wastewater because there had been a drain built into the pole building where this industrial processing facility was going to be constructed. And we live over the Paleo Water Channel. So there's a lot of just basic environmental concerns that we all had, in addition to things like trucking coming and going, massive amounts of tonnage of chicken manure and waste supposedly being brought in or not being brought in could be arguable. But the proposal that was written for this project included 100 tons a day.
Wow.
So whether or not it was going to happen at that facility is debatable. But, you know, there was a lot of unclear, what felt very dangerous, minimally industrial in a residential community. We're zoned residential agricultural community for a reason. And it's people that want to live where they farm. And bringing industrial products and production into that environment completely changes the facade of the community.
So it's not, you know, and again, like an outside cynic will say, well, maybe this is just a case of what they would call NIMBYism. But really, this is like about the essence of safety, right? Like environmental safety for your drinking water, right? For road safety, for the infrastructural.
The peaceful enjoyment of your own resources.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and again, and to your point, even the ability to actually farm.
Yeah.
Right, in a safe way.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I think one of the ongoing discussions over the last, this has been about a year and a half now since he began construction and it was noticed by the neighbors, is that a lot of the folks in the community are actually supportive of this kind of a project being successful. It's a prototype, it's a test. A lot of us would love to find ways to dispose of the excess manure in a way that creates energy. There are people who are also opposed to that kind of industry, but that's not ever been the discussion.
Right.
The discussion is just put it where it belongs, which is in an industrial zoned area. We know that he had visited industrial zoned areas and had meetings with the former mayor about that. Had letters of support from the mayor, the previous mayor.
Mayor Jake Day?
Yeah. And so we know it was an issue of discussion and consideration, but the operator decided to try and put it on a chicken farm. And that was the big issue.
And hence the battle that you began. So Rhonda, let me ask you this question because you had the chance to actually look at the application in detail. Now, it's my understanding that there was a broader project here for the biorefinery owner and his, again, broader desires. So what was the actual intention and why should the public care?
So in his original grant proposal, which is what we got to read and then was offered to him in a grant agreement through various, the state of Maryland and other organizations that were supporting, his original proposal was that he would be building a test facility, like a prototype, and then it would expand into other biodiesel refineries around the community, I'm sure around the Eastern Shore, because this is, chicken country.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of expansion proposed and envisioned and supported in the agreement that was given to him with the grant funding. And so our concern, one of the things that we were most excited about in the court ruling is that the judge did find that this was a process, and a process immediately excludes you from agriculture and puts you into industry. And he and his attorneys repeatedly used that word process. And it was interesting because even back during the Board of Appeals hearing, they used that word, and we've been saying the whole time, this is a process, it's an industrial project. And so his vision was that if this was passed here, and exceptions, my assumption is if exceptions had been made here, then they could have made exceptions everywhere with the case ruling in their favor.
So we could have looked at a situation where across Wicomico County, these kind of well-connected planners could have built numerous industrial projects threatening farmland, threatening water supply. Wow.
in a residential agricultural community with the excuse that it's actually an extension of farm use. And so the court specifically ruled that it's a processed product, that it's not an accessory farm use, and it requires being in an industrial zone. And so, as I said, we're not opposed necessarily to this type of project if it's run safely and under good monitoring, but it shouldn't be in a neighborhood.
Well, let me ask this. You've put a lot of time, money, stress.
Yes.
How does it feel?
Well, it feels very rewarding. At least you feel like you didn't walk 20, 30 miles around the neighborhood a couple times and knocking on doors and bugging people. But, there's so many people to thank for the end result. We need to be thankful to the zoning board, the circuit court, some groups that directed us in the proper resources, how to go about, getting petitions. So there's so many people to be thankful for. Nidell and Ace, the lawyers that we hired us from the neighborhood to represent us in circuit court, and we can't take the credit for ourselves.
Well, a lot of credit goes to you, though,
Well,
for initiating that.
Yes,
Wouldn't have happened without it.
but it shows you what a few residents with some local resources can accomplish if they feel like there's a need for that. And I think so many people in our area felt the need, so they pushed along, and thankfully, we won this one. But we'll see what comes later.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm really relieved. I'm encouraged to know that our zoning code was upheld by the court system. You have two different branches of government that agreed, which doesn't always happen.
Go figure.
And I feel, we've had discussions with some of the code department themselves that, we do need updated codes in Wicomico County. Industry and agricultural practices are changing. But at this point, this is what our code is. And I guess one of the things that we've had discussions about in the neighborhood is that as we revisit, I know Wicomico County is, hopeful to revisit and update our code. We need to stay involved.
Yeah.
Because we need to, protect what we feel is important in our community. But we also need to be willing to understand and learn what new processes could be introduced that would be beneficial to farmers. I think that it was important for us to see that traditional farming in Wicomico County is protectable.
Yeah.
And that if people want to bring waste to energy resources and production to the county, there's a way to do it. You follow a permit process, you follow an approval process. Highly recommended that you come rub elbows with the neighbors, even in an industrial zone. It's always good to have friends.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for, like Joe touched on, we as a community can do great things. It's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, those of you running for election know it's a lot of work. It's a lot of phone calls. But we have to be willing to do, pick the things that are important and then work really hard and band together and work on them. And I think this was an example of a lot of people who worked really hard together.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
I got to tell you, again, to me, it's always humbling when a few local citizens can band together, as you both said, and not just come together for a cause that you all believe in, but to sort of apply your different strengths,
Yes.
right? Some people are good at legal knowledge. Other people are just good networkers and talkers of people, right? Some people are farmers who can speak to the dangers. They say many hands make light work.
Oh, yeah.
But many talents also make for a successful outcome. And I think it's just, it's just from my perspective as someone who's observed it and has tried to give you at least a little bit of a voice, it's very humbling to see what you've been able to accomplish, because we always feel as humans, right, usually at our worst when we don't have control over something. That's such a common thing that we struggle with. And we see that with our relationship to government, right? We can't change, we can't stop a war, perhaps. We can't change the direction of the federal government. We certainly probably can't change from the state government. But when you have the ability as local citizens to be close to your local government and to have access and a voice and advocacy, and you do affect things in a positive way. It really does, I think, give you some hope that not only what you do matters, but the importance of local government and being aware really can make a difference.
Yes.
Otherwise, this facility would have been built, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had that conversation on the way down.
Yeah.
That there is actually effective ways to interact with your local government, with your local officials, with your local government employees, and it's productive. And you pointed out that a lot of people have different skill sets. I've been kind of a lot of upfront, but I live actually like 3/4 of a mile away. The immediate residents there were vital in getting all the information, knocking on doors, spreading the word, all the contacts that they had within the community, visiting the county code enforcement, visiting, so many people. And I think it was a really great case study on how everybody said, I know how to do this and I'll do this.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that, so you do that.
Right.
And
Play to your strengths.
right, and nobody was like jockeying for power, and nobody was jockeying for any of the control.
Yeah.
We had a lot of meetings where we all said, what do you think the top 3 discussion points are? We met in together, we met.
Yeah.
And it's been a really cool experience to see just regular people, fight. This project was backed by millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
From the state level, from universities, from a lot of important people.
Yeah.
And we won.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, again, I think the context of those forces that you were up against make it all the more amazing. And again, we tend to think of local government as boring, but this is quite a little dramatic story in our.
It was.
No, not for you, but for people who don't follow, right? It's sort of maybe not on their radar, but it's a real David and Goliath story, and I'm glad.
And if
David
by
won
chance he does appeal again, then, I think we've still got the willpower and the determination that we will continue to fight, because we know what we're fighting for is the right thing for the people.
It's the old line when they asked Winston Churchill to talk to students, do you have any advice? He goes, never give up. And they said, well, can you elaborate? And he goes, never give up.
Yeah, it's a long haul sometimes.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here, for informing the public.
Yeah.
Obviously, if there are any updates or changes, we will be glad to have you on.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's
what you
our...
guys have done for our community
Yep.
too.
Thank you so much for
It's-
giving us a voice.
No, it's our pleasure. It's for the public. That's why we're here. Well, we'll be right back with the next segment of Open Agenda. Welcome back to Open Agenda. Back with us in the house, Mr. Jim Atkins,
Good morning.
sir, and Mr. Joe White.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks. So, gentlemen, both of you are very much tied to rural ways of life. You both own farmland. You both are lifelong county residents. I'm very curious your thoughts and views on the hopeful final resolution to this court case and the ramifications of it. Jim, let's start with you. What do you, because this happened in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, it's in my neck of the woods, and we've also got another situation going on closer in my neck of the woods. But the people want to pit farmers against property owners in residential areas, and that's not what this is about. And farmers are the best people to have around you if you have a house out in the country. This is a business. This was a processing business that was, from what I've heard and seen, the application was falsified for what the purposes was. We have the same thing on Porter Mill Road with the DAP tank. Supposedly the application was falsified. And the community members stood up and said, no, we don't want this in our community. And they got really involved in it and got the right people behind them to help them and went on with it. They are not anti-agricultural. They are anti-industrial businesses in their backyard, which we all are that live in the country.
Well, industrial business and industrial waste.
Yes.
Joe?
Well, I mean, Jim and I are both members of the Farm Bureau, and this actually started over on my side at the Chestnut Farm in Willards. So this same Raj Kathuria, he set up his first biodiesel refinery site in my area. And it's interesting, we have Farm Bureau directors out there, and I've had a chance to speak with them. Actually, just at the dinner the other night and getting updates on state bills and federal bills. This was not supported by the Farm Bureau.
Yeah.
One of the most disgusting parts of this whole appeals process was to hear Raj Kathuria use right to farm legislation as an excuse for his industrial operation.
Yeah.
And that is not what it's intended for. Right to farm allows for our rural way of life. It's huge. It's integral to what we're doing. But it's really disheartening when you see someone try to circumvent the rules, as Jim said, and use something that's here to protect us.
And pervert it. Yeah. Well, and I think to your point about sort of it being disgusting, no pun intended to the nature of the refinery process, but as Ms. Rhonda Tomko alluded to, this was part of a broader project.
I believe we would have seen potentially 8 or 9 more of these biodiesel refineries built in our county had this one been successful. And it didn't. And this is the difference. And Jim alluded to this about farmers being business people. This process did not have to be financially successful because they were using state grant money.
Yeah.
They were using our tax dollars to fund this.
Yeah.
So if that's your vetting process, then let private industry do this in a zoned area in industrial. But it can't be.
Yeah.
So they were going to use our tax dollars to force their way in, and for political and financial gain that would not have benefited our own community.
What do you think about that?
Well, it certainly, I mean, when you have the state basically backing this gentleman and allowing him to get these permits and getting the grants and everything to him, those people in Annapolis know what the zoning laws are just as well as anybody else, but they're backing it. And this is just another example of the thing that's going on now with the housing in the county, where the state is basically telling the county that your planning and zoning people don't matter anymore because we're going to tell you what you can and can't do.
I think that's the interesting thread line in all this, apart from, let's just say, nefarious relations with people that have influence, is it seems to be the state coming in and overriding any local control, any local just nuance and consideration, right? Because, the zoning laws that are local are there for a reason.
Yes, we should have local jurisdiction
Control
over our area.
Yes, now, and they don't want these processing plants on the other side of the bridge. I mean, it's the Eastern Shore shove it down here, and
there's one other connection too. I'm sorry, Jim.
Yep.
There's Raj Kathuria is on the commission with the Maryland Department of Agriculture that pushes these green energy initiatives, and I don't think this is a green energy at all. There's biochar as one of the products. There's jet fuel as one of the products. These are not environmentally sound.
Jet fuel.
Jet fuel was one of the 3 products that would have come out of this biodiesel refinery. But when you start looking at the connections, as Jim said, they know what our zoning laws are here, but they're willing to circumvent our laws, and they're willing to do it for people who are connected to these commissions. With the fact that Raj Kathuria was on the commission, that's a bias there that should not even have been allowed to proceed.
Right. Well, that's the thing. How it even got to that point still just blows my mind.
I remember when Rhonda first showed me the grant, and I had to read it. It's a long grant, but then there's so many red flags. I mean, you could get to page 2 and already know this needs more scrutiny from people who have legal backgrounds.
Yeah.
But but a layperson could see how obvious that this was not okay.
yeah, and the point is you have people like Rhonda and Joe and those guys out in that neighborhood that push this issue.
Yeah.
And you had Monica Brooks pushing this issue, which forced the planning and zoning people, in my opinion, to address this problem. Because it looks to me like originally they weren't going to fight it a whole lot.
No, I think they were.
Do you?
I will tell you, one thing I'm really proud of. One is their group for advocating for themselves. County council meetings, getting up with the executive's office. These are the transparent processes we all want to see. But more importantly, this was a bipartisan issue, as we've seen most local issues are.
Right.
I even look at some of the folks I get to talk to by and large out in the county. You don't, it just does not fall into a silo of what's Republican and what's Democrat. This was about the fact that folks needed a public platform and then they needed the legal system.
Well, to the point that we were addressing earlier in the previous segment, because you have the ability as a citizen to have a voice in your local government, they can do that. They can go to county council meetings, right? They can ask people in planning and zoning, right, for questions or even advice. They can network, and I think that's one of the, as disturbing as it is to hear about the possible implications of what future biorefineries would have been had this gone through. It's very encouraging that local citizens can step up and have not only a voice in the government, but to have a redress of grievances. And I think that's the big takeaway here, is it not?
Well, that's part of it, but I just have to push back a little bit. I think the biggest benefit to these folks out here with this refinery was Tracy Taylor coming on board in this county with planning and zoning. Because prior to that, you had this biorefinery starting up. You had the DAP tank at Mardella starting up and in process. You had the dog kennel problem in Sharptown. But since Ms. Taylor has come along, she is involved with the community. She's involved with the citizens, and she listens to them. And she knows what's right and what's wrong.
I will say, when I watch her in work sessions at county council meetings,
she's very impressive.
She knows where all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Jim brought up about the Board of Appeals earlier. The one thing there is, I wasn't sure if it was going to get to that point, but once it was there, there was a public hearing. Everybody could have gone and spoken for it or against it. Right. And we went and covered it.
Yeah, we did.
It was great to see that out there. Yeah. Granted, the legal system had to get involved here at the end, and we're still currently in that phase. But hats off to those folks.
Like I said, it's great to see good things happen for good people with good intentions.
Yes.
And I think it speaks to a lot about what we have in our community here in the county from all different levels. Well, gentlemen, let's end on a positive note for that. Yeah. And we'll see what the next week brings us, because it will bring us something.
It will, and maybe some better weather too.
Maybe better weather, yeah, today for sure. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in this week to Open Agenda. We appreciate it, and we'll see you very soon.